While Washington insists the damage is limited, leaked videos from U.S. soldiers tell a very different story: burning bases, smashed equipment, and medics racing through the smoke. Iran claims it has killed or wounded hundreds of American troops in just days of missile and drone strikes, a figure the Pentagon fiercely disputes, as it confirms only a small number of deaths, with the Strait of Hormuz effectively choked, oil prices surging, and Russia openly siding with Iran, your job and your future. These first images you are seeing were not filmed by Iranian media or by some anonymous bystander. They were recorded by American soldiers themselves, standing in front of blazing compounds and twisted metal as Iranian missiles and drones tore into U.S. positions across the region. They were told to say the damage was minimal, but their own cameras show something else entirely. In the United States, the official line is simple: 6 service members have been killed so far after a drone evaded air defenses and slammed into a makeshift operations center at Kuwait's Shuaiba port. These are the only deaths Washington is prepared to confirm, and the coffins arriving on American soil are presented as the full story. Yet Iranian commanders boast of far higher numbers, claiming that hundreds of U.S. troops have been killed or wounded, figures that Western media and independent analysts have not been able to verify. What we do know is that the strikes have been precise and relentless: Iranian missiles targeting command centers, storage depots, radar sites, and logistical hubs used by the U.S. and its allies. In some cases, regional outlets have shared satellite and drone imagery that appears to show heavily damaged compounds and scorched equipment, even as official briefings downplay the scale of the losses. On the ground, the gap between what soldiers see and what their leaders say is growing wider by the day. Across Israel and Lebanon, Iranian-aligned groups have launched rockets and missiles at military positions, while Israel has struck back with heavy fire on densely populated Lebanese areas, leaving ordinary families trapped between sirens and airstrikes. Footage from Lebanese towns shows homes reduced to rubble and civilians desperately fleeing, even as Israeli officials frame their campaign as purely defensive, when Hezbollah responds with attacks on Israeli military sites. Much of that at sea. The fight has moved to the world's most critical choke point, the Strait of Hormuz. Roughly a fifth to a quarter of global oil flows through this narrow stretch of water, along with the vast majority of LNG exports from Qatar and the United Arab Emirates. As Iranian threats and attacks escalate, shipping through Hormuz has been effectively choked, with tankers diverted, delayed, or stopped altogether, and insurers raising premiums sharply for any vessel entering the zone. The impact is already visible at the pump. In the opening days of this conflict, retail fuel prices in the United States and Europe have jumped as markets price in both current disruption and the risk of a longer-term supply shock. Analysts warn that in a scenario where Hormuz is fully blocked for weeks, global oil supplies could contract by around 25% and LNG flows by nearly 20%, a hit that would send energy-importing countries like Pakistan, Spain, or Indonesia. That would mean much higher costs for gasoline, diesel, and electricity, and pressure on already fragile household budgets. Industries that depend on cheap fuel, from aviation to shipping to manufacturing, would face rising expenses, forcing up the price of everything from food to smartphone deliveries. What looks like a regional conflict on the map. Meanwhile, the diplomatic map is shifting. Russia's ambassador to the United Kingdom has stated openly that Moscow is not neutral and supports Iran's position, accusing the United States and Israel of starting the conflict and insisting Tehran is merely responding. That statement moves Russia from quiet partner to declared backer, signaling that any attempt to isolate firm resistance in the UN Security Council and beyond. At the same time, regional players are making them potential targets for Iranian retaliation. Others, like Qatar and Oman, are trying to position themselves as mediators. Doha has raised concerns directly with President Donald Trump about the war's duration, while Muscat has publicly urged immediate de-escalation and warned that the region is running out of framps. Inside Iran, the pressure is intense as well. Tehran's leadership is balancing public. When Iranian officials floated softer language about halting attacks on certain Gulf targets, backlash from military and popular circles forced them to harden their tone again, a sign that even Iran's president has limited room to compromise while missiles are still flying. So where does this leave the world? The United States is fighting a war that is increasingly shaped by Israeli priorities, with ground troops already killed and more casualties considered likely by its own commanders. Iran has vowed to cross every limit in revenge, signaling that it will not stop until it believes it has fundamentally changed the balance of power. For now, all sides claim they can still control the escalation, but as bases burn, tankers halt, and new alliances harden around this conflict, the risk is that events move faster than anyone's strategy. The decisions made in the coming weeks could determine not just who wins this phase of the war, but whether a generation grows up. In a world of permanent crisis, higher prices, deeper polarization, and constant fear of the next strike, and what it means for your country's economy, make sure you subscribe and turn on notifications. Share this video with someone who needs to understand why this conflict matters to their everyday life, not just to politicians and generals. And tell us in the comments how rising prices and global instability are already affecting you.